Saturday, Duke, UNC, Dean Dome, round one. Pat Welter, Mark Bergin, WRAL Triangle 2. Pat, the stage is set considering both of these teams ranked yet again, and we get college basketball's greatest rivalry. Round one. I can't wait. I'm hoping we get this multiple times this season.
Yeah, I mean, we did last year, right? They met in the ACC tournament a couple of years ago. They meet in the Final Four, so you never know. And this is a really fun one because this year we get the two fabulous freshmen, Caleb Wilson for UNC versus Cameron Boozer and Duke. And the big men are the story this year in the Duke versus UNC rivalry.
Pat and I are recording this on Tuesday in advance of Duke's game against Boston College. You were at the UNC-Syracuse game on Monday night. The Tar Heels had a huge lead, and then Syracuse came storming back at the end. What happened there?
It's an example of you kind of rip up the script halfway through because the story through 3/4 of the game when UNC's up 32 points with 9 minutes to go and riding now, a 4-game win streak since the disastrous California road trip, and they win by double digits at Georgia Tech, which was a trap game, Syracuse, potentially a trap game before the big Duke game, and you're like, these guys have figured it out. And then you're like, no, they have not. And sure, like it is human nature, I think, Mark, for a team that's up 32 in relatively easy fashion to kind of let your foot off the gas pedal. But Hubert Davis, I think, nailed it on the head himself after the game. A, he called it unacceptable, and B, he said this has been their problem all year. They don't stick to the script, and they need to find a way to fix it now because, sure, they still won the game by, 10 points? But this is a true symptom of this team. This is something we've been seeing repeatedly where they just are not consistent for 40 minutes.
So I was watching the game. They were up so big. I flipped to something else, and it's like this game's well in hand. It's over. They look good. They're ready for Duke, the big rivalry game Saturday. I flipped back over because Kansas was playing Texas Tech afterwards in the nightcap. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, there wasn't enough time for Syracuse to come back.
I mean, it got to 6 in the final minutes. People in their seats were squirming.
Yeah. You mentioned the freshman, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson, the first time we'll get to see that matchup. Mm-hmm. Going into tonight's game against BC, I mean, we're talking about Cameron Boozer, the nation's second leading scorer, an ACC high, 23.5 points per game. The fact that we get to see this, I'm so jealous you get to be boots on the ground in the building to see this. I mean, it's going to be an electric atmosphere in Chapel Hill Saturday.
I love how, like, every year it flips which one is first because they both have a distinct character and vibe. But both of them feel, and I'm not sure that's always Super Bowl Sunday, but it has kind of that kind of vibe to it when you walk in. There's a buzz. It's a who's who, always famous alumni from both schools and attendance. Anybody who wants to be there in the market is there, and you're talking on the sidelines, who do you think is going to win? And that's the thing, like, kind of throw the records out a little bit. These games are pretty close. Now, Duke has won the last 3, and John Shire has a decided edge over Hubert Davis. Shire 5-2 by my count versus UNC since he's been head coach. Hubert Davis 4-6 versus Duke as a head coach. So really anything can happen. And I think, like, Duke, this game to me means more to UNC than it does to Duke, right? Like, Duke has answered really every bell this season. They're 20-1. They're 9-0 in conference. They're number 1 in net. They've got quad 1 wins for days. Now, UNC has a strong resume. I mean, they don't have to worry about making the tournament anymore. But as far as, like, are they truly a Final Four contender? Games like the Syracuse game where they let a team back in like that, games like Cal where you come out and get down double digits after the Stanford loss, that tells me that you're not. But if you beat Duke, the best team in the country, that kind of changes the conversation.
Yeah, both these teams are really hot going in. You say throw the records out. I mean, UNC's won 4 in a row. Duke going into the BC game has won 9 in a row. Could be 10 in a row if they win, again, tonight at the time of this recording. So you say throw out the records, and it's like I look at 2 of the better teams in college basketball, but I look at Duke 2 undefeated in conference play, again, to this point at the time of this recording. They're firing on all cylinders. And so, like, okay, Cameron Boozer generates a lot of the headlines, but Duke Athletics put this out there where when Isaiah Evans, Slim Evans, Duke is 21-0 in the past 2 seasons when he hits 3 or more threes in a game. So if he gets going, it's just they have so many different weapons and so many different ways that they can beat you, just given how talented the Blue Devils are and how deep they are as well.
Yeah, I mean, Shire calls it inflection points. Like, this team fights through the down moments in the game, and you never know who it's going to be that steps up. And I like that he's kind of shortened his rotation. Like, Shire's got his rotation down now. It is pretty much 8 guys and maybe Darren Harris. And I think when you watch UNC, they're still figuring it out a little bit. Like, who are those guys? You talk about Isaiah Evans being the guy. Well, for UNC all season this year, it's been Caleb Wilson, it's been Henry Vesar, and then after that, it's kind of like, okay, right? Like, what's happening here? They've been
whose night can it be to be that third banana, if you will? Yeah,
and a lot of the onus is on the guard play, right? Like, as an excuse or a reason, they missed Seth Trimble for a month with his forearm injury, and they're trying to work through the guard rotation. Kyan Evans comes here as a transfer for Colorado State. He's supposed to be the point guard, and it just doesn't quite work out for whatever reason. They've shifted now to Derek Dixon, and things are kind of locked in. Now, Jaden Young is in the starting lineup, more just in name only. Kyan Evans is still getting in there, and that's what I'm kind of talking about with the rotation, where Hubert is playing a deep rotation, and I think he has a deep team, but to a certain point, I think that's hurting the team, where guys just aren't getting enough rhythm. They don't have a long enough leash, and I think it's hurting the Tar Heels right now, and I think you're seeing it.
So rotation aside, for the casual fan, I know that the 2 freshmen, Cameron Boozer versus Caleb Wilson, that is going to generate a lot of the attention, a lot of the headlines, round 1 between the 2 talented players. I'd imagine they'll both be lottery picks in the NBA drafts. Is it as simple as which of those 2 plays better and his team wins, or is there something else that you think will help determine the outcome of Saturday's game, Pat?
That's certainly a factor, and UNC has an issue allowing teams' leading scorers to just go off against them. I mean, we saw Donnie Freeman go off for his season average in the first half in the Syracuse game. We've seen, Abuka Akori from Stanford go absolutely off, and that you could kind of just go down the list of guards or leading scorers on teams exceeding their season average against UNC. So if Cameron Boozer exceeds 23 and goes off for like 34 points in this game, I think it's pretty safe to say that Duke is going to win. But it's deeper than that. It's defense for UNC. It's being engaged. And I mentioned that earlier, inflection points. Duke is engaged for all 40 minutes. They are sharp throughout. And as talented as last year's team was with Con Knippel and Cooper Flagg, and watching those 2 guys in the NBA right now take over as rookies, you're like, wow, how did this team not win a national title?
We've talked about that too, Pat. But to your point, Duke this season, right now at the time of this recording, 20-1. It is the program's best start to a season since the 2007-2008 campaign, Pat. So, like, in terms of being locked in, you're spot on about that.
This team might be better. Like, this might be the team that actually gets it done.
And I told you at the start of the season, it's like, I don't know if they have the top-end talent of the Cooper Flagg, of Con Knippel. To me, it was the depth where it was like they can just throw. They can do so many different things. They can switch on defense. They can guys who normally shouldn't be able to switch on guards can. Like, they can do so many different things, and it's like not a lot of other teams where it's like, well, a lot of times a team will be a style of play and they'll beat you a certain way. Duke, because of the depth, it's like that was the thing that really stuck out to me about this year's team in comparison to last year's team. Last year's team, I think there's no question about the talent, but this year's team is just a nice blend of, again, you see what Cameron Boozer's doing, but Evans certainly has experience now as a sophomore, and it's like it's just the depth is what really stuck out to me about this year's Duke roster.
I think it's depth in guys like Dame Sarr, who's your Swiss Army knife defender and a guy that might go in the lottery pick, even though he isn't really even being asked to score yet at the college level. Nicholas Hemenia, who could come in off the bench and hit a few threes, and then not to mention the other Boozer brother, who is a really solid freshman point guard and a great backup, and supplementary piece to Caleb Foster. With UNC, like, I would say Duke not only has depth, they have an identity and they have roles. And I think that's what's really separating them right now is like they are locked into their roles. Guys have bought in to those roles. And I think maybe what you're seeing more with UNC, and they're getting there, right? Like one of the reasons they struggled on that California road trip is because I mentioned the rotation, how deep that was. Guys are still trying to fight for these positions and these roles. Like who's going to be the starting point guard? Who's going to be the first guy off the bench? And I think we're starting to see that in the win streak, right? Derek Dixon locked into the starting lineup. He is essentially now the point guard, and Kyan Evans comes off the bench, and he's a guy that they're going to need, right? Like, has it worked out for him so far in Chapel Hill the way they had hoped? No, but what he did in the NCAA tournament last year still exists, getting a Colorado State a couple rounds in, and he can still shoot. And Hubert has talked about needing him to like not worry so much about the ball going in the basket and finding ways to make winning plays. So Hubert hasn't quite translated to these guys what their roles should be yet. They're getting there. They're not quite there yet. And these are the moments when that kind of stuff reveals itself. Like who's going to be the big game player? Like who's going to be the guy that has his moment? Because these are the games where you're remembered forever. So if Carolina doesn't have its rotation yet, they might after this one.
Amen to that. I want to go rapid fire before we wrap here. Keys to the game. If there's a key for overall or for both teams, what would that be, Pat?
I mean, I think I've been hitting on it throughout. UNC has to be engaged for 40 minutes. They cannot let their foot off the gas pedal. They cannot let their focus lapse for a moment, because if they do, my most likely scenario for this game, Mark, is it's close. I could see UNC coming out hot at home and leading early, potentially even leading by double digits at a time. But if they lapse, Duke could take it right back. And I think most likely when it's all said and done, I could see Duke winning by 10. So, but if UNC plays to their potential, which I think is why I've been so hard on UNC and on Hubert Davis this season, because I think this team is his most talented that he's had. Caleb Wilson is one of the most talented players in UNC history, certainly as a freshman. So you're holding them to that kind of standard. So I think they can do it. They can win it. It just comes down to me like being engaged the whole 40 minutes.
Is there an X factor to this game? And while you think about that, what I would say is that home court advantage, given that this first game is at least in Chapel Hill, I think that does matter in terms of the noise, the loudness, the opposing team coming in with a hostile crowd. I think that could potentially be one. What say you, Pat?
Who's going to get hot? Because I think we're going to get it from Wilson. We're going to get it from Boozer. Those guys are superstars. They're going to deliver at or above their average. But you talked about Isaiah Evans earlier. Him going off for 3 threes in a 2-minute stretch could completely flip the game. UNC has some guys like that as well. Jonathan Powell really showed out in the Syracuse game, and I think he's really done well in limited minutes throughout the season. So could a guy like that come in and get hot and flip this game?
Or Vaysar down low, if his size proves to be a disadvantage for the Blue Devils, if they don't have someone that can stop his length, his size around the rim too, that's another factor to consider.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Patrick Gongba, who's their second or third leading scorer on the season, and he's an underrated player, another force inside. So this game really is like about the big men. Cameron Boozer, Patrick Gongba, Caleb Wilson, Henry Vaysar. I mean, old school, right? Like college basketball's gone to the perimeter, and we've got, especially on the Duke side, like these are true underneath the basket bigs. Now, obviously, Boozer can do a lot of things. I mean, gosh, the guy leads the team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, and I think he's getting better. Like, he's attacking the rim now off the dribble in ways that have impressed me, and his passing is incredible. I mean, he is like their de facto point guard. The assists tell the story, but when you watch him, the way he's able to pass out of double teams, it's pick your poison. You double team him, he hits an open shooter. You leave him open, he's going to out-physical you, and I don't think really UNC actually has anybody that can defend him one-on-one.
Will it at least get one of two, these matchups? I'm hoping perhaps the ACC tournament, maybe the NCAA tournament, but we'll at least get two between Duke and UNC. He is WRAL's Pat Welter. Pat, any other thoughts here before we sign off here of the big Battle of the Blues rivalry game between Duke and UNC?
Just one more. What more can you ask for, right, in the triangle? We've got Battle of the Blues, Duke versus UNC Saturday, and a Super Bowl Sunday featuring UNC's own Drake May versus NC State's Drake Thomas. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
It's the apex, man. It's I'm going to be really sad when football's over. I know that this is a basketball area, basketball city. But man, it's going to be a great weekend. You got Duke UNC on Saturday, Patriots and Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are going to win it. We'll see against New England, but it's going to be really, really fun this weekend. Again, he is Pat Welter. I'm Mark Bergin. This is another edition of WRAL Triangle and 2. If you haven't already on the WRAL YouTube page, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. Apple and Spotify, 5 stars and 5 stars only. Pat, as always, a pleasure.
Let's go.